Time now for Say What on First Things First. Spurs took down the Warriors 103-90 yesterday to avoid the sweep. Manu Ginobili turned back the hands of time, dropping 16 points, 10 of those in the fourth quarter alone. And according to Warriors head coach Steve Kerr, he knows exactly how old Manu is. Say what?
Yeah, Steve, I was going to ask you if you wanted to see the birth certificate for Manu to prove he's not really 21, so he can play forever, can he?
I know he's old because he was my teammate, and I'm old as dirt.
What's amazing about this picture of Manu and Kerr together from, I believe, the '99 finals.
Can I guess what you're going to say? Kerr looks exactly the same.
And Manu looks like a different human being.
He didn't age as well as Kerr.
I guess that probably would have been the '03 finals, but regardless, like, Steve looks identical. Manu looks like it's his brother.
Much younger brother.
Yeah, Steve's face is a little weathered. I mean, up close and personal. Like, I can understand what you're saying. Manu has aged a little differently.
Yeah. I'm trying to think,
But
guys.
Steve got plenty cracks on him now.
Oh, wow. Oh,
All of a sudden.
Oh, trust me, y'all crack now. That's not one of y'all's forte. I don't know what you talking about. You look like the same guy. There ain't no white guy look like the same guy 20 years later. No guy. You won't either.
What do black don't do, CC?
Come on, man. You know it, man.
Well, Jenna don't. What do black don't do?
I don't even understand the question.
I understand.
No, it's not a question. It's a statement.
Crack. The answer's crack, Jenna. Black men tend to age better than white men, is CC's
Black
point.
people, man. Black people.
Okay, we were talking about men, CC.
Yeah, but she wouldn't have known.
I have no idea
Jenna
what's
don't have
happening.
one black friend. Me. Let's go.
That is
Let's go.
so not true.
Name
Deontay.
Name three.
Listen, big friend. Deontay
Steven Jackson. Chris Broussard.
Hey, man, my lawyer is it, bro?
Time for some stories to start your morning. We're going to run through them real fast because someone's getting real awkward. The Bucks took down the Celtics 104-102 to even the series at 2. Giannis finished with 27 points, 2 of which came on a very frustrating game-winning tip-in. They couldn't even get him the ball. He had to tip it in. Nick, how do you see this series rounding out?
The same way I thought it was going to go in the beginning of the series. Bucks in 6. Like, this was a golden opportunity for Boston to steal one. I mean, to absolutely, Milwaukee was up 20. And they ended up, Boston had a lead late, but they didn't. I think Milwaukee's better. Eventually, the talent's going to matter in the postseason, even though Boston has a huge coaching edge.
Milwaukee's one of the few teams that, after game 1, you had a lot of questions. After game 4, they are a lot better team than they were 3 games ago. The reason why? A lot of injuries towards the end of the year. They got Brogdon back, playing a maximum number of minutes, last year's Rookie of the Year. And Giannis is starting to figure out when to take his spots offensively. So I like the Milwaukee in this series. This is going to be probably a 7-game series.
All right. Moving on, the Wizards beat the Raptors 106-98. They even that series out at 2 apiece. Bradley Beal finished with a team-high 31 points, but he did foul out of the game, which led to John Wall taking over down the stretch. He finished with 27 and 14 assists. CC, how impressive did John Wall look yesterday?
Oh, very impressive. Not only John Wall, but the rest of the team. This team, because 2 games ago, we were talking about, oh, they're going to break these guys up. If they lose this series, if they get swept, if they lose 4-1 to Toronto, this is the last time we're going to ever see this collection. So to be able to change people's conversation, John Wall looked like the superstar that he is, but John's been injured. The first couple games, a little bit sluggish, kind of spotty, missing more shots at the rim than I expected. But John Wall is a superstar in this league. Him and Bradley Beal played sensational game 3 and 4.
And once, though, I mean, listen, this is a bad loss by Toronto. You have a 14-point lead, and then it's a tie game when Bradley Beal gets fouled out with 5 minutes left. Beal's beside himself because up to that point, he was the only shooter on Washington and done anything. And then John Wall was great down the stretch. Like, to lose this game, if you're Toronto, now all of a sudden you're going into game 5 saying, oh my God, are all the ghosts of last year's past coming up? And by the way, for Toronto, that bench mob is a little different with Fred VanVleet out due to injury. That's something to watch, him having not played the last couple of games that Washington won.
All right, moving on to Saturday's Thunder Jazz game. Utah took a 2-1 series lead with their win. Jazz were carried by Ricky Rubio's 26-11 and 10 triple-double. After the game, Russell Westbrook said he's going to, quote, shut that expletive off. and he said it just like I did, exactly the same way, and intonation,
Cadence, everything.
And he said expletive, which was really weird. Nick, you think the Thunder will bounce back in Game 4?
No, I don't. Utah's really good now. People have looked at Utah as a whole this season instead of looking at them with Rudy Gobert. Since Rudy Gobert came back, they played like one of the 5 best teams in the league. I think they have solved, to a degree, the Thunder's offense, and Gobert's such a good rim protector. What they don't solve, he can erase at the rim. I don't think they're going to bounce back. I think Utah's the better team. I think they've demonstrated it over the bulk of this series.
Yeah, and OKC, inconsistent throughout the year. When will all 3 of these players play well together? And the truth of the matter, from a defensive standpoint, Ricky Rubio, how could someone, Russell, be that athletic and not be a great defender? I've always wondered about Russell. When he's dribbling the ball, he got a lot of energy. On the defensive end, he has a lot of energy getting the rebound. But playing just flat-out defense, not necessarily his strong suit. To me, I believe it's a mindset. Russell has never made up his mind he wants to be a great defender. That's why Rubio lit him up the other night.
All right, finally, the Pelicans finished off the Blazers on Saturday. Both Anthony Davis and Drew Holiday had over 40 points as the Pelicans completed the only sweep of the first round, and they were underdogs. Go figure. Nick, does the sweep say more about the Pelicans or the Blazers?
Well, what it says about the Blazers is you need to make, if you can, and they're kind of strapped cap-wise, major changes this offseason. My guess is they will shop one of Lillard or McCollum. Is that if the year you get the 3 seed, the year you have your best possible regular season, you not only lose in round 1, you get swept in round 1. Major changes are coming to Portland. For the Pelicans, what it says is their makeover on the fly post-Boogie Cousins injury is one of the most impressive coaching and player jobs we've seen in recent NBA history. To remake your team stylistically, to add a piece in Mirotic at the deadline, who's now your 4th best player, to get this type of performance from Anthony Davis, Drew Holiday, it's just remarkable.
Can I ask you a question? Does this put less pressure on the Pelicans to bring Boogie back and sign him to a huge deal, knowing how well they played without him down the stretch?
Well, they were even better with him. So I think that what Boogie has done, and Boogie's kind of, he's trying to repair his overall image. So it's not just a basketball thing with Boogie Cousins. He felt at home in New Orleans, had a great rapport there with the team, with the ownership, in the locker room. Alvin Gentry loves having him there. So I wouldn't want to get into, do they have to sign him? What it does is, I would never trade Anthony Davis. That to me, winning a series like this lets me know I would never trade him. As far as what's going to happen to Boogie, you got a guy that has some age on him, and he's got an Achilles. So I don't think they run hand in hand. What is the number for Boogie that he wants? I'm sure Boogie would prefer to stay on a team that has some playoff experience in winning and playing opposite of the brow, just because he's never really had a home. He's never happy in Sacramento. So why would he want to jump around? So
the team's got some leverage going into that.
Well, even if he got hurt, though. I mean, when he got hurt, the team had leverage.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not as if because the series now, that didn't change his leverage from a contract standpoint.
What the series did, though, you touched on it. Like, people please. My pal Jeff Goodman put out, hey, what would it take for the Celtics to get either Kawhi or Anthony Davis? Anthony Davis was never on the trade block, and even if you believe he was, that's now over. The idea that this team, with 3 years of control or contract-wise of Anthony Davis, when they're this good already, would move him, when he will go into next season, my guess, as the MVP odds favorite. He's going to finish this year 2nd or 3rd in the MVP. They're not moving him.
Also, you have to realize Tom Benson, he passed away. The owner, his wife took over ownership. Now, they're probably going to be departing with Drew Brees, either him retiring or I doubt if he would ever play anywhere else. So having Anthony Davis in that city with the ownership, they own both of those teams, I mean, it becomes important. Drew Brees, just like he revitalized that franchise in that area, Anthony Davis is doing the same thing.
And just real quick on the Game 4, because I don't want to get lost in the shuffle, Holiday and Davis both going for 40. That has only happened 6 times in NBA playoff history. I think because LeBron and Kyrie did it recently, people think it's happened more often than that.
What, 2 players?
2 players on the same team go for 40-plus in a playoff game. They were spectacular.
Yeah.
And, I mean,
You're our history guy. Why didn't you say that the first time?
What do you mean? This is the first time we're talking about this.
No, the first segment when you answered the question, like you said
I
something
threw
else.
you off. I asked you about Boogie. It was all my
No,
fault.
it's okay. I
I
was
mean,
just
live flow critiques, man. I gave the Pelicans angle, the Blazers angle, threw that in at the end, and then we
and it's like Belichick. Don't complain because ain't no democracy around this stuff.
What? Okay. I sit so close to you. I feel like I hear everything. Let's get you caught up on.
Dusty just said it in your ear or something. But
No,
oh, yeah,
no. We were talking about it before the show.
Let's get you caught up on where we are with Dez Bryant possibly going to the New York Giants.
Another report.
Nowhere. The former wide receiver was cut by the Cowboys a week and a half ago. Dez may have floated the idea of going to the Giants when he posted a video of himself working out with Odell. But it was reported by a report that came out with a report from a reporter yesterday that the Giants are in fact not interested in Dez's services, and so it goes. CC, what does it say that the Giants are reportedly not interested in Dez Bryant?
I'm not surprised, and the reason why is because I listened to Janoris Jenkins after the 2016 season. He talked about Dez Bryant being limited as a route runner, said he runs the slant, he runs the dig. The only way he can get deep on me is run some type of double move. So typically, when a player says that about another player, that's not how he feels. That's exactly what they said in the scouting report the week of the game. So you have a scout, someone in the organization, he comes into the defense room. He says, Dez Bryant, right now, athletically, he's declining, doesn't run a lot of good routes. Watch him on the slant, watch him on the dig. If he makes a double move, he's typically going deep. So the player is just sharing the information. So that's the intel that the organization, that they felt about Dez. That's why I don't like all those reports. Last week, the report, oh, the Giants might be interested in Dez Bryant. Yeah, right. This week, the real report came out that they're not as interested in Dez as people had reported before. And a lot of it, I believe, is they're very, very familiar. When you play in the same division, when you get cut, you're either the first person they're going to look at because they're familiar with you, or they're familiar with you and they don't want any pieces of you. Then I believe that's where the Giants stand as far as Dez Bryant today.
This is a cold dose of reality for Dez.
Dez, yep.
The Giants cut a player at his spot that he could fit into. The Giants need a player of his type. He wants to stay in the division. He knows the DBs in that division. The Giants, we think, unless they've been tricking us about their draft plans.
Yeah, I don't think he wants to stay in the division because he knows the DBs. I think that he's a little immature. He just wants to get back at Dallas.
I agree.
Because he hadn't had a great success in the division.
No, I agree. There was in my thought process, there was a comma there. He wants to stay in the division, comma. He knows the DBs, which would make him more theoretically attractive to teams in the division because he knows the players he's going up against. There were a lot of reasons that you would say, oh, Dez and an NFC East team makes sense. Okay, what NFC East teams? Well, Philly just added a wide receiver, Mike Wallace. They already had a good wide receiving core. Throw them off the list. Maybe Washington, maybe the Giants. When the Giants know he has interest, no, unless he's been lying, he's not going to demand top dollar to go there. All those things, and they still don't want him. If you're Dez Bryant, now all of a sudden, I would think you would, or you should think, man, was it Garrett's guys or was it a lot about me and my play and where I am? Because if a team that needs you, that you want to go to, that is familiar with you, like Chris said, if you're either the first call or not even getting called. And that's a tough reality to be on the wrong side of that equation.
What do you think about that? Do you think that Dez is finally getting the message here?
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't know reality. I mean, I've been on Dez for a long time. He's not good. So, I mean, why should you be shocked? Like, that asking price that he has, and given what's out there, you thought, oh, Dallas is going to cut him. Man, Dallas is going to be shorthanded. Dez, it's a buyer's market. Okay, you're better off staying with the team you are. You're better off negotiating some type of salary, and they weren't even up for that. You are as good as your film. So look at the film that you've looked at for the last 3 years. It's not a matter of what does Chris think. It's not a matter of, look at the film. The guy has not been good. Last year, there 28 more receivers had more yards than Dez Bryant. So it's not a personal thing with me. This is what I've seen. He's declining athletically. He's not a smart football player. What type of influence is he going to have on the younger guys? And what is the asking price?
Well, that last or second.
And can he stay healthy?
That's another fair point. But that second to last part about the influence in the locker room stuff, because we talked about this last week. Dez Bryant's production for a number one receiver is not what you want. But we talked about how dynamic it could potentially look.
With
Giants
Odell.
draft Saquon. They bring Odell back. If Dez is your number two receiver getting you 800-900 yards and 7-8 touchdowns, you're fine with that if that's the role Dez was going to play. If the Giants don't even want him in that role, if they're not even comfortable with him in that role, then you have to question what the league as a whole thinks of Dez Bryant, whether or not folks have, because of the team he plays for and because of his great run for those 3 years, if we've all overrated him.
Also, Gettleman might be saying this. Why do I slow down the development of Sterling Shepard? I like where he is. Why do I get him less rest? Ingram, the tight end, he's the star. Why do I slow down that development to bring in a guy that's going to be making more money than them, and eventually it gives you less money that you can pay Odell? So I like where the Giants are thinking. The reality of it, they have more intel on the player than most teams in the league that aren't in the NFC East.
And maybe they know they're going to have to be careful with Odell when they sign him, just about what his personality, how that mixes with the locker room. Maybe they didn't want a second big
It'd be a
personality
lot for a new head coach, a new
And a new GM,
and
yeah.
potentially combustible situation.
All right, coming up, back to basketball. Also back to basketball. Could the Cavs get eliminated in the first round? That's next on First Things First. Yeah.
Can you feel it? You're connected to the World Cup. It's in your DNA. You may not have visited the country, but we're all connected to a World Cup nation.